It is better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. Zeno of Citium. You have lost the art of silence, haven't you? In this world of endless noise, constant chatter, perpetual digital validation seeking, you have forgotten that the spaces between your words carry more weight than the words themselves. You speak when you should observe. You react when you should reflect. You fill every uncomfortable pause with unnecessary sound as if silence were death itself. But you are wrong about this fundamental truth. Silence is not absence, it is presence distilled to its most potent form. It is the ultimate expression of self-command, the mark of a man who knows his own worth without needing others to confirm it. Your ancestors understood this profound wisdom. They spoke only when their words could change the course of rivers, when their voice could alter the destiny of nations. Now you babble at every provocation, defend every slight, explain every misunderstanding. This is not strength. This is weakness disguised as engagement, cowardice masquerading as courage. The ancient Stoics knew what you have forgotten. True power lies not in having the last word, but in choosing when to have no words at all. When criticized unfairly, you do not defend, you endure. When confronted with ignorance, you do not educate, you withdraw. When faced with malice, you do not retaliate, you transcend. This is not passivity. This is strategic superiority. This is the warfare of the wise. Marcus Aurelius commanded legions yet spent his evenings in silent reflection, understanding that the greatest battles are fought within the fortress of the mind. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Every word you speak in reaction to external provocation is a surrender of this power. Every defensive explanation is an admission that others control your peace. Every justification reveals that you have made yourself subject to forces beyond your dominion. When someone attacks your character with lies, your instinct is to correct the record, to set the story straight, to defend your reputation with the fervor of a lawyer pleading a case. But reputation is what others think of you. Character is what you are. And character needs no defense. It stands or falls on its own merits, reveals itself through consistent action over time. The man who rushes to explain himself reveals that he values others' opinions more than his own integrity. This is the mark of a boy, not a man. This is the behavior of one who has not yet learned the difference between what he can control and what he cannot. Consider Gandhi, who faced the British Empire not with speeches of defense, but with the deafening silence of principled action. He understood that arguing with power diminishes you to its level, brings you down to the battlefield of those who would drag you into meaningless combat. Instead, he embodied a force so quiet it could not be shouted down, so still it could not be moved, so certain it required no justification. This is masculine strength in its purest form, unshakable, undeniable, undefended. You live in an age of endless explanation where every man thinks he owes the world a detailed account of his choices, his beliefs, his methods, his motivations. Social media has turned every opinion into a public declaration, every preference into a political statement. But explanation is for those who doubt themselves. Justification is for those who seek approval. The sovereign man offers neither. He acts according to his principles and lets the consequences speak for themselves, allows his life to be his argument. When false rumors spread about you, your ego screams for correction. Your wounded pride demands vindication. The boy in you wants to post a response, send a message, call a meeting, set the record straight immediately. But truth is like water, it finds its own level without your assistance, seeps through the cracks of deception without your help. The man who chases every lie with explanations becomes a slave to other men's words, a prisoner of their narratives. Better to let your actions over time reveal what kind of man you are. Better to let the quality of your character outlast the noise of your critics. This is not about becoming cold or indifferent. This is about becoming discriminating, selective, strategic in your engagement with the world. Your words are currency. Spend them wisely or find yourself bankrupt of impact. Your attention is sovereignty. Grant it selectively or discover you rule nothing. Your reactions are votes for the kind of man you choose to be. Cast them consciously or remain forever subject to others' provocations, forever dancing to the tune of their choosing. The weak man fills silence with noise because he cannot bear his own company, cannot stand alone with his thoughts, cannot tolerate the absence of external validation. The strong man cultivates silence because he has found something worth protecting there. In the quiet spaces of your mind, away from the demands and opinions and judgments of others, you encounter who you really are beneath all the roles and masks and performances. This meeting terrifies most men. They would rather talk about anything: weather, sports, politics, philosophy, than sit alone with the sound of their own thoughts echoing in the cathedral of their consciousness. But this is where strength is forged, not in the gymnasium or the boardroom or the battlefield, but in the silent moments when you choose discipline over comfort, principle over popularity, truth over convenience. When no one is watching, when no one will ever know, when there is no reward for doing right except the knowledge that you have remained true to what you believe. These moments of private integrity accumulate into public character. These small choices in the darkness become the foundation of your strength in the light. Epictetus understood this when he taught, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The world is full of men who can articulate virtue but cannot practice it, who speak fluently about honor while living dishonorably. They write beautifully about courage while avoiding every difficult choice. They debate the finer points of character while compromising their integrity for temporary advantage, immediate comfort, social acceptance. Their words are sophisticated, but their lives are ordinary. Their theories are elegant, but their practice is weak. You are not called to join their chorus of empty voices. You are called to something higher, the ancient path of the silent warrior, the man whose presence speaks louder than his words, whose actions carry more weight than his arguments, whose character casts a longer shadow than his reputation. This path requires that you develop comfort with being misunderstood, with being underestimated, with having your motivations questioned by those who measure all men by their own small standards. When anger rises in you, and it will rise, for you are human, subject to the full range of human emotion, silence becomes your sanctuary. In that pause between provocation and response lives your freedom, your choice, your power. Most men react instantly, slaves to their emotions, prisoners of their impulses, victims of their conditioning. But you have a choice that they have forgotten. The choice to respond rather than react, to consider rather than condemn, to hold your tongue until your mind is clear and your heart is calm. This requires training, discipline, practice. Your emotional reflexes have been conditioned by years of immediate gratification, instant communication, perpetual stimulation. You must relearn the art of pause, the discipline of delay, the wisdom of waiting. Like an archer who draws back the bowstring not to hesitate but to aim, you pull back your words not from fear but from precision, not from weakness but from strength. The man who masters this art discovers something remarkable. People begin to listen when he speaks because he speaks so rarely. His words carry weight because he does not waste them on trivial matters, does not dilute their power with unnecessary volume. His opinions matter because he does not offer them freely to every ear that will listen. He becomes a man whose silence commands more respect than other speeches, whose quiet presence has more influence than others' loud proclamations. This is not a game of manipulation or strategy designed to impress others. This is the natural result of living with intention rather than impulse, of moving through the world with purpose rather than reaction. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you discover that the right people understand you without explanation. When you stop defending your choices to critics, you find that supporters appear who need no convincing. When you stop trying to control how others see you, you gain the freedom to become who you truly are beneath all the expectations and assumptions. Seneca wrote, "It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact." How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? Most of your defensive explanations, your preemptive justifications, your anxious clarifications are responses to problems that exist only in your imagination, battles that were never declared, attacks that were never launched. You exhaust yourself fighting ghosts, defending against phantoms, preparing for wars that exist only in your worried mind. The practice of strategic silence teaches you to distinguish between real threats and imagined ones, between criticism that matters and noise that doesn't, between challenges that require response and provocations that deserve only your indifference. This discrimination is the hallmark of mature masculinity, the ability to choose your battles rather than letting every battle choose you, to allocate your energy based on what truly matters rather than what merely demands attention. In loss, silence becomes your teacher and your refuge. When death takes someone you love, when failure destroys something you built, when betrayal shatters something you trusted, your first instinct may be to speak, to explain, to blame, to make sense of senselessness, to fill the terrible void with words. But grief has its own wisdom, and that wisdom often comes wrapped in wordlessness, in the kind of deep understanding that cannot be articulated or shared. Sitting with loss without immediately trying to fix it, understand it, or move past it. This is how men learn depth, how boys become men. Not through the accumulation of victories, but through the integration of defeats. Not through avoiding pain, but through meeting it with dignity. Not through having answers, but through becoming comfortable with questions, with mystery, with the limits of human understanding. The man who can sit with uncertainty without rushing to fill it with premature conclusions develops a strength that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. He learns that not every question requires an immediate answer, not every problem demands an instant solution, not every discomfort needs to be eliminated through action or explanation. Some things must simply be endured, witnessed, allowed to transform you through their presence rather than their resolution. This is the opposite of the modern masculine ideal, which demands constant motion, perpetual growth, endless productivity, measurable progress toward defined goals. That model creates men who are busy but not deep, active but not wise, successful but not fulfilled, rich but not satisfied. The ancient model calls you to something different: the courage to be still, the wisdom to be quiet, the strength to be alone with your thoughts without flinching from what you might discover there. When injustice strikes, and it will strike, for the world is not fair, not just, not organized according to your preferences, or deserving silence becomes your weapon. Not the silence of submission or defeat, but the silence of a man who knows that his response to unfairness reveals more about his character than the unfairness itself reveals about the world. Your reaction to injustice is your choice, your responsibility, your opportunity to demonstrate what kind of man you are when tested. Nelson Mandela understood this when he chose reconciliation over revenge, healing over hatred, bridge building over bridge burning. He could have emerged from prison with justified anger, righteous indignation, a clear mandate for retribution against those who had stolen decades of his life. Instead, he chose something harder, the path of principled silence about past wrongs in service of future peace. This required strength that most men cannot imagine, the strength to absorb injustice without becoming unjust, to experience hatred without becoming hateful. This is your inheritance as a man, the capacity to stop cycles rather than perpetuate them, to end conflicts rather than extend them, to choose responses that elevate the situation rather than responses that escalate it. But this inheritance must be claimed through practice, not simply acknowledged through understanding. It must be earned through daily choice, not merely appreciated through intellectual recognition. Every day presents opportunities to choose silence over argument, patience over reaction, wisdom over cleverness, long-term thinking over short-term satisfaction. These small choices accumulate into large transformations. The man who learns to hold his tongue in minor provocations develops the strength to hold his peace in major crises. The man who practices restraint in comfortable moments builds the muscle memory for restraint in crucial moments when everything depends on his response. This is not about becoming passive or withdrawn from the world. A silent man can still be a decisive man. A quiet man can still be a powerful man. A reserved man can still be a dangerous man when circumstances require action. The difference is that his actions flow from choice rather than compulsion, from principle rather than impulse, from strength rather than weakness, from wisdom rather than emotion. Your silence must be earned through self-knowledge, not imposed through self-doubt. You remain quiet not because you have nothing to say, but because you have learned the value of saying nothing. You choose non-engagement not from fear of conflict, but from mastery of conflict. You practice restraint not as limitation, but as liberation from the tyranny of immediate response, from the compulsion to react to every stimulus presented to your attention. This path requires solitude, deliberate time alone with your thoughts. Not the loneliness of the isolated man who withdraws from the world in bitterness, but the chosen aloneness of the self-sufficient man who has learned to find company in his own mind. In quiet moments, away from the noise of others' expectations and opinions, you discover what you actually think, what you actually value, what you actually want to become. This discovery cannot be rushed or forced or shared before its time. It emerges only in silence, only in stillness, only in the kind of deep listening that most men never practice. The modern world will resist this practice with every tool at its disposal. It profits from your reactivity, feeds on your explanations, depends on your need to be heard and understood and validated. Every platform, every medium, every system of communication encourages you to share your thoughts immediately, defend your positions constantly, engage with every provocation presented to you. The algorithm rewards outrage, amplifies conflict, monetizes your emotional responses. But you were not born to feed these machines with your energy, to dance to their rhythm, to measure your worth by their metrics. You were born to develop mastery over your own responses, sovereignty over your own thoughts, dominion over your own peace. This development requires that you disappoint the world's expectations in service of your own evolution, that you choose your own path rather than following the crowd toward whatever destination they have chosen. The journey toward mastery of silence is also a journey toward mastery of self. As you learn when not to speak, you learn when not to act. As you develop control over your words, you develop control over your impulses. As you practice restraint in communication, you practice restraint in all areas of life. The same muscles that help you hold your tongue will help you hold your temper, control your appetites, resist temptations. This restraint is not restriction, it is refinement. Like a craftsman who removes everything unnecessary from his work until only the essential remains, you remove everything unnecessary from your responses until only wisdom remains. Like a warrior who trains until his movements become effortless, you practice until your silence becomes natural, until restraint becomes your default rather than reaction. The man who masters strategic silence discovers that he has gained something invaluable, the respect of those worth respecting. People begin to seek his counsel because they know he will not waste their time with empty words. They trust his judgment because they have observed his restraint. They value his presence because they have witnessed his ability to be alone, to be content with his own company, to find peace in solitude. When confronted with boasting, you do not counter with your own achievements. When faced with ignorance, you do not feel compelled to educate every fool you encounter. When challenged by provocateurs, you do not take the bait they offer. Your silence in these moments is not weakness, it is the expression of a man who has nothing to prove to those whose approval means nothing, who wastes no energy on audiences unworthy of his attention. This discrimination between worthy and unworthy audiences for your energy is perhaps the most crucial skill a man can develop. Not everyone deserves your response. Not every situation merits your engagement. Not every fight is worth having. The wise man understands that his time and attention are finite resources to be invested rather than spent, allocated according to his values rather than scattered according to others' demands. Aristotle spoke of the golden mean, the virtuous balance between extremes of excess and deficiency. Applied to speech, this means knowing when words are called for and when they are not, when engagement serves a purpose and when it merely feeds chaos. The man who never speaks is as flawed as the man who never stops speaking. But in our age of constant communication, the greater danger lies in speaking too much, too often, too carelessly. Your words should be like your promises, given rarely but honored completely. When you do speak, let your words carry the weight of consideration behind them. Let them emerge from thought rather than impulse, from principle rather than emotion, from strength rather than insecurity. Let them serve a purpose beyond mere self-expression or emotional release. In this way, you become a man whose rare words matter more than others' constant chatter. You develop the kind of presence that commands attention not through volume but through substance. You earn the kind of respect that comes not from self-promotion but from self-mastery, not from demanding recognition but from deserving it through your actions. The path is long and the practice is difficult. You will fail many times before you succeed. You will speak when you should have remained silent. You will react when you should have responded. You will explain when you should have endured. But each failure is a teacher, each mistake a guide toward better choices, each setback an opportunity to strengthen your resolve. What matters is not perfection but direction. Are you moving toward greater self-command or away from it? Are you developing the strength to choose your responses or remaining slave to your impulses? Are you becoming more discriminating in your speech or less so? Are you growing in wisdom or merely accumulating opinions? The answers to these questions will reveal whether you are walking the path of the warrior or remaining trapped in the patterns of the boy. The choice, as always, is yours. But choose consciously. Choose deliberately. Choose in silence if necessary, but choose with full awareness of what you are choosing and why. This is your destination, becoming a man whose silence speaks, whose restraint commands, whose peace influences. Not through manipulation or strategy, but through the simple practice of choosing your words as carefully as you choose your actions. Not through withdrawal from the world, but through engagement with the world on your own terms, according to your own values. The path begins with the next provocation you face. Will you respond immediately, or will you pause? Will you explain yourself, or will you let your character speak? Will you fill the uncomfortable silence, or will you rest in it? These moments are your training ground. These choices are your curriculum. This silence is your teacher. Learn from it well. Your strength depends on it. Your peace requires it. Your growth demands it. Your legacy will be built upon it.